My name is Dr. Tsitsi Hungwe, and this is my story. Welcome to another episode of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ. Let me start with introducing Dr. Tsitsi Hungwe by reading her impressive and busy bio. And I thought I was busy, but she is super busy. Dr. Tsitsi Hungwe is a Zimbabwean-American sought-after keynote speaker, independent contributor, writer, corporate trainer, and leadership development expert. Leveraging several years in the dental industry as a dentist, she helps early professional women confidently prepare for the next step, whether starting, advancing, or transitioning into new careers. Dr. Tsitsi serves as the founder and chief executive of Higher Mountain Tops LLC. She empowers students and professionals at corporations, universities, and organizations with her message of mastering mental resilience and mindset for a successful transition. She has delivered inspiring live virtual keynotes and leadership training for organizations, including the Leadership Experience Tour, Economic Development Association of Minnesota, University of Michigan, Women in Leadership Conference, Minneapolis Community and Technical College and Support DDS. Dr. Tsitsi, a two-time Amazon best-selling author of Mastering Career Transitions, The Unveiling 6 Essential Strategy, and Leadership Unveiled, Elevating Leadership Through Experience. Her work has been featured across dozens of prominent media platforms such as talk shows, radio segments, and podcasts, and in leading newspapers and magazines, including Tap In Magazine, CEO Weekly, Bold Journey, New York Weekly, and Voyage Michigan. Thank you, Dr. Hungwe, for coming in. I am so excited to sit down for this hour, and I'm sure that we're not going to cover everything, but as a fellow dentist, I have so many questions for you, especially about the line of work that you've been doing with new dentists or the new dental generation. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So let's start with the first question I ask every women immigrant guest, regardless of their line of work, regardless of their profession. Since my culture is all about storytelling, that's how we communicate, that's how we transfer a power to the next generation with all the information and knowledge in life lessons. What is your story and how did you end up in the United States all the way from the South African region of Africa?
Our family had been in the United States in the early 90s. My parents were going to school at Michigan State, and I was young at the time. We returned back to Zimbabwe, and actually that was supposed to be a permanent move. We ended up immigrating in the early 2000s, and I talk about this more in my story in Leadership Unveiled, the book. And I talk about the decision that my dad made, a difficult decision to step down from his role at the University of Zimbabwe. And he really wanted to look ahead and provide opportunities for my siblings and I, and knew that by immigrating to the United States or even elsewhere, there would be those greater opportunities. Fast forward, he applied for a position at a university located in Michigan, and he got a job. He left the familiar. My mom sacrificed so much. She was in a position at a job that she loved, but they loved their children and had a vision greater than themselves. And so we left our homeland and moved to the United States in the early 2000s. And that was 2003. And the rest is history.
Wow. This is the perfect example to our audience and some viewers that haven't been watching or listening to season one of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian on the Mindset Master Moment was all about displacement. And I'm glad you started with that And we use a different language that I think a lot of the public or a lot of people that never experience displacement know, which is basically displacing yourself by default or displacing yourself by design, meaning that depending on the circumstances that you had by default, you had no other choice but to leave and displace yourself, whether immigrating or migrating, meaning that to immigrate, and this is for the audience just in case they don't understand or they never been through that experience. Immigrating is just leaving like a whole country, a whole continent. Migrating could be as simple as going from a very humble, simple village to the big city or a bigger town away from family. So that is leaving or displacing yourself from your home world into the new world. And of course, there is so much involved in that experience, mentally, emotionally, physically, technicality, economical, socioeconomical ways to do that, to acculturate and also to simulate in the new society. So you basically carrying two parts. You have this duality of nationality, duality of language, duality of mindset, duality of culture, and the adaptability you become like a multicultural adapter, or you gain a multicultural competency in order to, adjust to one or the other, because in public, you're dealing with the new world. In private, in your household, you're dealing with the home world. So you're going back and forth, and we talk a lot about that. So I'm just explaining to the audience. I'm sure you understand. I'm just explaining to our viewers that there is such thing. There is a process of that mindset that we go through in order to detach ourselves, or like you said, to sacrifice for any reason. Now, displacement by design, you could be one of those people like myself. I wasn't really pushed to leave, but my options were not good enough for me, for my mindset, for my belief system, for my personality. And I wanted something more and better. So I ended up displacing myself to the United States. So, being a second class citizen in Saudi Arabia, I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. There was not much for a second-class female in Saudi Arabia, that many options for me, nor it really matched what I was looking for. That's why I decided to leave. So I came in 1988 at age of 19 and pursued the dental profession. So, just like in your case of your parents, it is a sacrifice. We have a saying in Arabic that, الهجرة صعبة والثمن غالي, meaning that, immigration is not easy, and you pay a big price, hoping that price is good enough or worth the gain at the end of the road, or the end of the story. It's like, okay, that was worth it. But unfortunately, I hear, and I have interviewed some guests that it was and it wasn't, and that's a really tough, realization to swallow, that I sacrificed everything and that's all I got out of it, kind of thing. So, it never fails to amazes me how humans can do that and go through the process of displacement. So you are the child of basically a diaspora, which is, you are the child or the offspring of parents that had to displace themselves for a better future and better life. I guess my question about that, how was the household of displaced parents in your case? Was education is number one, because obviously your parents are in the academic world. for example, I'll give you my example. My parents, food and education. Those are the two most important things in our household. Was that the belief system that, quitting is not an option, doubt is not an option, giving up is not an option? Because education, my dad used to say, education is your ticket to the party. If you are educated, people are drawn to you. People will consider your opinion. People will be interested in what you have to say or think. Was that the case in your household?
I would say, education was definitely the driver for us to come to the United States. So that is definitely in alignment. And, you have to, maybe some context is helpful for that. That was actually passed on to my parents, because they grew up, in Zimbabwe at the time when it was Rhodesia. Which is the former colony name. And at that time, with the limited opportunities that they had experienced, it was really the way for them to continue on and get those opportunities in their own life. And that was the gift that their parents gave, which was, hey, we will do everything we can to cover your tuition and education, especially for girls, including my mom, was really what helped her to rise to the position that she ended up achieving. And so they passed that down to, the women. There's 3 of us girls in the family and my brother. And my dad always really empowered us as girls. He always told us from a young age that we were leaders. He always spoke positive words of affirmation. And what the greatest gift that I received from our parents was that they gave us the gift of choice for the career that we were going to pursue. And so you will, know after some time that I am the first dental professional in my family, into the best of my knowledge in my lineage. We have a medical physician, as one of my siblings, and we all took different paths. And the reason for that is, they believed in us. And then said, hey, now that we've given you this education, make a choice, leverage the education you have. And that is why I stand today. And so I would say it was the education and the empowerment, especially as a young girl, that speaks volume, especially coming from a father. And so those were the 2 greatest gifts that I received.
You won't believe it if I tell you that my dad is exactly your dad personality and mindset. My dad is, as you know, Palestinian. He's originally from Nablus, Palestine. He was born and raised in Jordan. So I'm one of 5. There are 2 girls and 3 boys. And my dad was the first feminist I ever encountered. And he believed in empowering women like your father. He believed that women do make better leaders, although that's debatable as far as my mom is concerned. And he just believed that when I told him, for example, that Dad, I don't want to go back to Jordan because back in the 80s, as a second-class citizen in Saudi Arabia, a non-Saudi, I could not go to dental school. So professional school, it was only restricted and limited and privileged to Saudi citizens. So my option was either go to Jordan or come to the United States or Europe, come to the West. I did not relate to Jordan. I only visited Jordan as a tourist. I never lived in Jordan. Mm-hmm. Some of the families that we knew in Saudi Arabia will send their kids to finish high school in Jordan so they can acclimate to the life in Jordan, so they can finish college there, university years there. Because it's, as a Jordanian citizen, it's free. So it's much, much cheaper to get your undergrad compared to going to Europe or come to the United States. So I said, Dad, he goes, listen, you can go whatever you want. Just tell me where you want to go. And basically, I'll pay for you. I'll apply wherever you want to go. So, which I did. I related more to the United States. I just loved the style of life. I just loved the belief system, the values, and I pictured myself in the U.S., which I did. So it's amazing, and that has been a pattern in our podcast. I would meet people from whole different parts of the world, but at the same time, I find find so much in common, whether the way I was raised or how my parents looked at life. But, as a Palestinian, of course, with the suppression and oppression of their history, education was the only way out, whether getting a scholarship to get out, whether, seeking a higher education in order to make a name, for yourself so you can secure a higher positions in academia, or higher position in different governments, high position in international organization. That's why education was constantly emphasized in our household. Although my dad came from an affluent family in Jordan, he didn't care. He goes, this is not your money that you made. You got to make your own money. And the only way to do that, if you are financially or money oriented or transactional, you got to get an education, because he just didn't want us to rely on, I come from this family. I don't have to get education. I'm going to inherit this in X, Y, and Z. He didn't like that. So it's amazing how my dad and your dad, my dad, may he rest in peace, that they had so much in common, but a whole different parts of the world. We were talking about Africa and Asia, and that's what I love about this platform. So going back, why dentistry? Who inspired you, and what inspired you to go into this line of work?
Mm-hmm. My dentist that I had when we moved to Michigan inspired me to become a dentist. We started seeing her, and she was a woman. And being of her generation, things have shifted for my generation. Being a practice owner for that long, many decades, thriving, and being such a woman of integrity, and always being very intentional, and the care that she provided, it wasn't overnight, just to be candid, but I always felt comfortable going to see her. And by the time I got to college, I was majoring in biochemistry, and I thought, what do I really want to do? And once it dawned on me, I wanted to go into dentistry. Sometimes you just need somebody to affirm you, just as my dad had done. And I informed her that I, was interested in becoming a dentist. And she encouraged my interest, because sometimes it just takes that word. And I said, I have seen this firsthand, a woman of her level do this. And so as a young woman, I know that it is possible. And I never looked back from that time. And here I am as a dental professional, as a dentist.
How old were you when you realized that?
I was 19.
19 years old. Okay. And before that, did you encounter other dentists, but it didn't have that kind of impact on you?
I had encountered, I knew of some dentists, but it had not quite resonated with me.
Isn't that amazing? It takes a very unique, special personality that almost, I believe, the universe puts in your path to inspire you and empower you to end up doing what you're doing. So other than that dentist, what was your fascination? What did you think about dentistry when you were going into through dental school?
I was really excited to start dental school. In addition to my family dentist, I had, wanted to make sure that I had another opportunity to see dentistry in a different setting. And so, I call him my mentor, Dr. Vernon, who was based in Cleveland, gave me the opportunity to step into a dental school setting. And I did an internship at Case Western, and I was in a dental school. And I said, well, I see myself in a dental school very soon. And I remember that year doing that internship. And we were doing some research as well at the time. And I said, for sure, this is definitely what I want to do. And eventually I got into dental school. I told my peers I wanted to become a dentist, and they were like, good for you. I got into dental school, and that journey began. It had its ups and downs. And I've been very candid in sharing that story. But it was definitely one of those moments where you realize that, once you really commit to making a decision, and, I know now when I have that strong belief that I can do something, that it will happen. And that was a dream that I realized, 8 years later, between my undergrad and dental school. And, I've never looked back.
That is amazing.
Uh-huh.
Another thing you won't believe if I tell you this. I was 7 years old. And I said this story, I think twice or three times on my podcast. I came back from school and I walked through the door, and my mom was giving me a snack because I was so hungry. And when I opened my mouth to bite into the snack, she saw one of my primary molars, my lower molar, just hanging on a thread. My mom doesn't like blood. She's not into gross stuff like that. She screamed. She goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Mom, this tooth has been loose." And she goes, "Okay, let me just pull it for you." And I said, "Don't touch it. I don't want you to touch it." And I ran away. So my aunt, her sister, got on the phone that evening, and they were talking and gossiping and all that. And she asked, "How are the kids?" And she said, "Slava's driving me crazy. She will not let me pull that tooth out." My aunt goes, "There's a new dentist in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He just opened this progressive advanced clinic. He is from Syria, but he just graduated from the dental school in the UK. And he's looking for new patient. Let's take Slava there to check it out." I walked in, and the way I describe it, it's I was 7 years old, so I was born in 60, so that was 1977. And walked in, white and the mint green, the 60s look. The nurse had the 50s nurse gown and hat, and absolutely pristine and sterile. I loved how sterile it looked. And that dentist walks towards me, and he looked like Pierce Brosnan, literally, in a white coat. And I was in awe. And I looked to my aunt, and my mom was sitting behind me, and they were just like Bugs Bunny, the hearts in their eyes, right? So he kneels down eye level, which is a very, very progressive approach, as you know, and he says, "What's your name?" I said, "My name is Slava." He goes, "Why you're here?" And I said, "My tooth is loose and I won't let my mom take it out." He goes, "Come on in." So, of course, the ceramic sink on the left side with the little spout, very, the old-fashioned chair, dental chair, but the whole wall in front of me was this beautiful glass wall window that you can look at the skyline of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So I sat down, and all I remember, Dr. Hungwe, is him putting headphones on me, and he said, "Close your eyes and relax." And the next thing I remember, I woke up and he's telling me, "Spit in the sink." And when I spit in the sink, it was blood. And I realized, and I wrote that story, I think, on Instagram, I realized that he took my tooth out. So I don't know till this day if he gave me nitrous or not. Probably he did. And then I got home and I kept bragging about it and telling my mom, "I want to be a dentist. And since that day, I insisted on becoming a dentist because I wanted to help people pull their baby teeth just like he did to me. But that's what I'm trying to say. It's amazing that one simple experience and one stranger that you never knew before had such impact on you. Probably I was there for half hour, 45 minutes, but that actually paved my path for the rest of my life as far as my career is involved. So we both were inspired by our dentist. That is amazing. What do you think of that story?
Yes, I concur. And sometimes it's just that one person. And I think that that's amazing.
It was amazing. And he became such a good family friend, till I think he passed away, if I'm not mistaken. And he ended up establishing the first and the largest dental center in the Middle East, which was in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And actually, I saw one of his associates right before I left Saudi. I was probably 18. I needed fillings and stuff, but that's amazing. All right. So I guess that this takes us to your line of work right now, your leadership line of work, empowering a new dentist and the new generation. And the first question that I can think of, what are the challenges? Because I do hire associates, hygienists, assistant, and I can spend an hour telling you what we see, what we experience. But with the young professionals, what is it you think that they need help with the most?
I appreciate that question. I have worked over the years in multi-generational offices, and I've been in a position when I started my career where I was the youngest in my office and leading senior dentists and hygienists. And so there tends to be also that navigation intergenerationally and leading teams. And now I'm on the other side where I'm, more experienced and having other team members as well. Some of them are assistants who are navigating their transition, not just even into the dental professional, but just how to be a professional. And I primarily in my other line of work with my business really have that passion to continue to elevate emerging leaders as well as early professionals. Some over the years have decided, hey, I want to have a conversation. I'd like to go to dental school. There's one mentee that's in dental school right now. Some of the challenges, especially in this time in 2026, has to do with, navigating the work environment, which is, hey, how do you instill confidence, but also navigate maybe working in a work culture where, it's the leader or the organization may be saying, hey, this is how things have been done. We will continue to do things this way, and still come in and maybe share your voice and what you think could be done to be implemented. And part of that requires dialogue. I see myself as a bridge builder intergenerationally because I am a millennial. And so when I am working with Gen Z and maybe my fellow colleagues are of a different generation, I understand both generations, having worked over the years and been in rooms to where I can speak both languages. Okay. With Gen Z, we want to leverage their technological expertise. And so you will find that sometimes adapting and finding a compromise, if you're an owner, maybe less emails. Sometimes updates should come through a text message. And so those are some of the compromises that I have seen over the years. And then from the, younger generation, I think it's also navigating, things like imposter syndrome. I'll just use that term as like, do I belong in this environment? Was I promoted into this position, by mistake, or do I truly belong? And then also then really just having that support and mentorship. And now I know the conversation is growing as well about not just managing employees, but really coaching them up, because management is needed. One style is not necessarily better than the other. When we're looking at maybe meeting expectations, meeting, what it is we want to meet, then we want to then lean into that managerial style. But then also, if we're looking to develop our people, then we want to put on that coach hat, ask more questions than telling. And so for this next generation, I think getting that hybrid as well, of really adapting and understanding them. And then from a younger generational standpoint, being patient, trusting the process, because I've been on the other side, and knowing that you belong is what I would say to the new early professionals today.
Wow. Because I created my brand 2013. So as far as I've been doing dentistry 27 years. I'm a Gen X, and starting my career in 1999, there was a lot of effort put into the adaptability as far as how fast the world of dentistry was changing around me and around us as Gen X's. Because remember, we inherited the dental culture from the baby boomers. And that inheritance was not matching nor adaptive to how fast the world was going. And I always say that your mindset is like, it's like a cord. You're trying to plug it into the new world. You need an adapter for it to actually communicate. And that adapter need to be gained, like you said, by training, by having a mentor, by having a coach, to create that adapter, that mental adapter, so you can click in the new world. So when I graduated, I felt like I'm stuck in between the baby boomers and the millennials, right? And when I graduated, I was 30 years old. So I was not the 20-something-year-old that, and I was married. So, life was busy. Going through dental school, I was in New York City. My husband was in California. So all these challenges will help you learn about how to manage your life. And I agree with you. It's all about management. But one of the things when I created my brand in 2013, so I was in my 40s, I decided that I'm going to drop what I did not like of the belief system that inherited from the baby boomers, and I'm going to add what I love about how the millennials are seeing the world. And that's how our brand got created. For example, we don't have an office manager. That's one of the aspects that I got rid of, because I felt like the baby boomers created the manager, the office manager, as a hindrance almost. It became a hindrance in the 90s and the 2000s and became that obstacle. It wasn't, before it was a liaison, but it's a concept that comes from the foreman, in the factory from Victorian time. And it wasn't working anymore because the world was changing. So I dropped that concept, and we have adapted from the training, from our dental coach, like you said, ask, don't tell. Compliment in public, criticize in private. Don't, terminology too. Don't call things problem. You call it challenges. We have a morning huddle every morning. We celebrate our wins. We learn from our challenges. Don't master your mistakes. You learn from your mistakes. And that all came from the millennials, where your generation was the first glimpse of that change in the mindset, how to perceive the world around you. Not only that, how to manage the world around you. So I'm a student of history and sociology and psychology, and I love to observe and just learn. So I took all that observation from the 11 years I was a partner with the second largest dental practice in New Hampshire. And when I split on my own to create my brand, I said, I'm not going to master my mistakes. I'm going to learn from my mistakes and the mistakes of the generations before me, because what am I doing? If I am mastering those mistakes, I'm going to transfer that power to the new generation. And guess what? The new generation, the Gen Z or the iGens, they're not going to like that. They're going to be very, very confused, and they're not going to be very successful, and they're not going to move forward. So as hard as it was, I had to really drop a lot of these values, the values or the beliefs that were not serving us as the new generation dentists anymore. And that was one of the secret of success of our brand, is the adaptability. We created that adapter to connect my generation, Gen X's, because we're still working. We're not retiring anytime soon, with the millennials and the Gen Z. And it's fascinating that you have talked about this, because that was exactly the process that I had to go through, kind of change or rehabilitate my mindset, because all my training, all my professors in dental schools and in the dental school, they were the baby boomers. They were older than me. So it was a lot of old school stuff, a lot of belief system that I was dragging. I'm like, I'm just dragging a load of stuff that was not serving me, nor I can use, because in dentistry was in the 90s, it was just like everything else. It was a huge time for innovation in dentistry. Dental materials were changing, the instruments were changing. The stuff that we are actually using right now, it was built upon what we used in the mid 90s or the late 90s, early 2000s. So I agree with you. I think changing your language, changing your attitude, changing your culture, and like that's why I call it our brand culture. That's what makes it successful, because guess what? The working force right now are the millennials and the Gen Zs. If you don't change that language that you're talking to them, you're not going to gain their trust, because they will trust digital devices and Google and social media before they would trust you if you're not talking that language. And I hope that makes sense to you. Do you agree?
I agree in terms of, that adaptability for language. Oftentimes, and this is something, that I did the self-work on, is, we often communicate how we want to communicate, as opposed to adapting our communication for the room, for the individual. And that, crosses over to generations. It crosses over to personalities. It crosses over specifically tailored for the individual. And as you stated, times have, changed, and it doesn't mean, and this is something I've had conversations even with my, we'll say, team members, but I will also even say, younger generation, which is here. It's also going to require on your part the self-awareness, okay? Self-reflection as well, because like I said, we're talking now about, one generation that's, maybe the Gen X, but what is it that you could do as well to understand maybe where they're coming from, and really taking that time. And that's why the conversation now in 2026, I find more often in rooms, is about emotional intelligence, because we know that technical abilities will only take you so far, but especially in the field of dentistry, that emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, self-regulation is what will actually carry you through and make not only your team members successful, but the practice successful. Because when the people that work for the office are successful and thriving, then that will trickle down to the bottom line. And those are the things that I did the work, self-work, to also get to that awareness, and thought, okay, this is no longer just about productivity. We got to build up the people as well.
Absolutely. And that's exactly when I say you build a culture, right? A culture that speaks a specific language, a culture that has a specific belief system. Because I keep reminding my team, we have about 30 employees. I keep reminding the team, we coexist, co-regulate, co-create every single day for 8 hours. You spend more time together than you spend at home. And then you use the weekend to kind of regulate again so you can start another week. So the words are very, very important. And I agree with you that 80%, after 20 plus years of dentistry, I feel like 20% of my time I'm actually performing dentistry. 80% of my time I'm managing patient expectations and team expectations. And in order to do that, you have to be equipped with the communication skills. And we say all the time, find your emotional IQ level? Where is it at? Who needs help? Find your strength so we can maximize on your potential, the strength finder. And that will help you gain the self-awareness, social awareness. Read the room. Because every hour on the hour, we're going into a whole different world that is the patient's world. And the patient's world at that hour from 2 to 3 or from 12 to 1 is the patient's world. It's not your world. It's not about us. It's about the patient, because at the end of the day, you're serving the public, right? So if you don't read the room, and that's what we train our team, is to study and understand and figure out how to analyze personalities in order to put that personality hat on in order to relate to the patient and be interested in the patient, so the patient can opens up and let you know exactly what's going on and what the patient belief system. So we train them on, for example, to use that personality type or personality style to approach them, to introduce the condition. What kind of language are you going to use to tell the patient that you have an infection? Everybody is so different. You could be data oriented, could be task oriented, you could be people oriented, could be resolution oriented. You need to understand who you are talking to. Then use the belief system of the patient. Do they believe in a root canal? Do they believe in a crown? Do they believe in an implant technology? You don't know. If their belief system that I don't believe in implant, I don't want a screw in my mouth, then the other option is try to save the tooth. So we teach them to spend 95% of the time with the patient, understand their personality, so you are able to explain to them the condition that they're in, and 20% of the time proposing their treatment by figuring out what their belief system. If the patient belief system is I hate root canals, I'm not going to waste 20 minutes explaining a root canal because they don't believe in a root canal. So you have to emphasize, or you have to focus your time on an option that actually they believe in, because at the end of the day, people are going to invest in what they see the value in. But it's amazing that you actually teach that. And we also teach that internally, because this is proof that we're both from a different part of the world, different part of the country, doing the same thing, but I'm doing it in my private practice and you're doing it as a mentor and a coach, but this is the future, right? And that is a proof that without that kind of approach especially to the dental world, people are going to have more and more challenges reaching to people, connecting to people, relating to people in their field. What say you?
Yes, I concur with everything that you said. And like you said, it's interesting. We're in different locations and different backgrounds. But it is a testament to self-awareness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hate to say it, because the new generation is so digital device, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You might have a different opinion depending on your observational data. But in my world, in Greenwood Dental world, amongst our team, especially the young generation, they're so digital device dependent. They skip the learning process of self-awareness and social awareness. And they fall back on, Dr. Slava is going to help me, but I'm not there all the time. You need I am ready to teach you, I tell them, the tools so you can actually practice that and apply yourself so you can get the results that you are trying to get, because they get frustrated. This patient and that patient, I didn't get the results. It didn't work. Help me, Dr. Slava. And I cannot be the rescue mechanism, pluck them out of that situation and take it on upon myself. Because number one, I'm not doing them any favor. I'm not teaching them. And number two, they're going to have to lead, because I'm the type of leader. I don't want to create followers. I want to create leaders. That's the only way that I'm going to leave a legacy that's going to be generationally healthy. Do you know what I'm saying? And be able to move through time or travel through time in a way that will be still continue to be impactful and helping the public. But it's almost like I cannot just save you and rescue you all the time. But because of digital devices, if it's not an instant gratification of that answer, just fix it, right? And I tell them, trust the process. There is a process of learning. There's a process of practicing. You have to rehearse things. You have to practice on each other. You have to practice with each other in order to master that tool and master that skill, because the only person that you're not serving is yourself. And of course, depending on different personalities, as I'm saying that to you, when I'm dealing with different personalities, I have to put different hats, because I would approach one personality different than other personalities. Some personalities, it just click. They're really fast learners. They take it on, they adapt it, they apply it. Some personalities, it just takes a little bit of a time. They're more people oriented than task oriented. And I need to handhold them and walk them through. But the bottom line, at the end of the day, I always tell them, give yourself some time and grace, be kind to yourself, and trust the process.
I agree. And I think that is one of the gifts of words that we can provide, any profession, especially in an age where there's a lot of highlight reels, and I'm using that as a metaphor, where you see things as they potentially are, but not as they really are. And a lot of times we don't really know what's behind a picture. I say all that to say, I think in a generation where there may also be, a lot of more instant gratification, but also not really knowing the full story. One of the things that I've been intentional to do over the years, because I am a conflict resolution expert. Okay. That is something that I worked through over the years from my time in dental school. I was like, maybe if I just do a better filling, the patients will just be all happy, right? But you learn over the years that people don't just come to an office, for their teeth. They come as whole people. Okay. That means that sometimes they have other concerns that have nothing to do with the office or other components. And it's not that we're there to solve that particular issue, but it's also then having that awareness of, how do I adapt my communication style for this moment? If somebody's maybe really upset, how do you de-escalate? Maybe it's time to ask a question. A lot of times when you get those objections, it can be easy to then just say, hey, try to redirect. But how about ask a question? And those are things that I've learned over the years, where using an objection and ask a question, go back to what it is. What is the reason why they came here? Okay. And then get them back and help them come to the realization of whether or not this will be a solution to their problem. And if it comes to their awareness that this is a solution to the problem, that they realize that they may accept the treat plan. Okay. But that's also a cultural thing, because I know other, dentists of different generations say, hey, we're in an era where we're also wanting to give our patients autonomy. And so just because the doctor says this is what it is, that's not the culture. Okay. So we give people the option, we give them space, and sometimes they're actually more likely to come into agreement because we've given them that space. But all that to say, I agree. It's a percentage of doing the work. And then the other percentage is also going to be that mind management and then working with the people. And ultimately, my goal is not just to be, great in anything that I do. It's to transfer the knowledge and skills that I have, to the next person. And ultimately that actually increases efficiency in any setting. Because when people feel good, when they feel like they can do something, when they're self-sufficient versus dependent, but what does take some work, and it takes intentionality to come alongside and really be patient to provide those skills. But we really want to definitely, remind, people that give themselves grace, and that we've had our own journey. It's taken a couple years. I've been transparent as well before over the years and say, hey, I know you're trying to get from here to here, from A to Z. How about we just go from A to K for right now? I'm just using it as a metaphor. And when we do that, we give then others the permission to take their time. And that's really what that's about.
No, absolutely, because you tapped into the transfer of power. And that's what I was trying to, transferring a power to the team in order to handle themselves. That's number one. Number two, ask more questions in order to help the person in front of you to break down whatever they're coming and help them. With time, they're going to come into the conclusion by themselves. So you don't have to say much. Okay. So, and that's how you create leaders. You need to empower them. I agree with you. Some personalities, they need baby steps. Some personality, they can take the leap of faith and then they'll do fine. So different personality, but it's up to us as leaders to teach that to the next leadership in order to customize the conversation, in order to customize the communication, to have more effective communication and not, like you said, end up with a very dependent relationship or even codependent relationship, which I see sometimes in my team. I'm not okay, you're not okay. If she's not okay, I'm not okay. Okay, that's the end of the day. You can't do that. You can't sympathize with somebody that's not okay and kind of join that trend, you're not okay, and just accept it, you're not okay. So you don't want unhealthy relationships, whether between the team and the patient or the team and the team, or even the mentor, right? Which is the office owner, or we don't have, like I said, managers, we have directors, because we don't believe people should manage people at this time, okay? Or this point of humanity. People need to manage tasks and manage responsibilities and manage themselves with the right training and with the right coaching and with the right mentoring. So we have directors of operation, director of finance, director of tasks. Why is that very important? And we created this in our brand to teach the new generation that it's not important for you just to do it because I said so. It's important for you to do it because it works. And like you said, trust the process, go through the process and see the results. And I always tell them, if you don't like the results, then tell me. I might need to change that way. Maybe I am not the person, because discovery, ahead in time, as you transfer that power to the younger leaders, they're going to say, you know what, Dr. Slava, this worked for you 5 years ago, but I tried it and now we have more data to say that we need to change our time. Just like I said in the beginning, change your belief system. It doesn't serve us well anymore, so we have to switch. And I've done that over the years. Young team members came to me and they were very dedicated, very responsible, very professional, very mature, and I saw them applying it over and over again. I'm like, I wonder why it's not working anymore. Well, it's not working anymore because the time have changed, or the clientele have changed, or the public view about that specific procedure in dentistry. For example, I think root canals, to be honest with you, is going to be obsolete very soon because of the implant technology that we have and how successful implants are. And implants are being done right now, at least in our brand, as young as 25 and as old as 95, because the technology is amazing and it has proven itself to be successful and useful and more guaranteed result, and it's worth the investment. So that mentality, that's just an example to show that changed my mindset about implants comparing to when I graduated in dental school. Implants were like, maybe, I'm not sure. I don't trust it. But now there's enough data and clinical data and observational data to support that implant. So I agree with you 100%. And I don't know if you know, but we launched our franchise group in 2024, and we just launched our coaching consulting group of Greenwood Dental. We have the U.S. and global team, and we have the MENA region team, and that's what we are hoping to do. Is as young dentists and young associates start their career by opening their dental practicing with their full autonomy, but yet the support of all that what we talked about, the whole package, to be successful faster and successful easier. I'm not saying taking the easy, and nothing's guaranteed, of course, but it's because the new generation sometimes are very impatient. So we created that model, how we can give them full autonomy for them to be the face of their own practice, but behind the scene to have that kind of mentorship, that kind of support with that, with that transactional relationship too. And that's the only way as Greenwood Dental for us to transfer the power to the new generation and transfer that culture to the new generation by having us present as a support system for those new franchisees. And that's why, like I said, the whole idea of, we said we have to have a consulting group and coaching group to show whoever is visiting the site that we do exist. It's real. We have a professional coaching team that actually going to be under your fingertips whenever you need us for support as you establish your own career. So, last question, Dr. Hungwe, is what's your advice for a young female immigrant that wants to come to the United States to seek the education in the dental world? Any thoughts?
I would say, and I'm thinking through and I'm reflecting on my own experiences and those I've crossed paths with over the years. I would say, definitely one of the things that I have leveraged over the years, and I will provide some context, is, leaving the familiar has its challenges. You'd leave, and we talked about the displacement and coming to another country. Those are all life lessons and things that I leverage even in my professional life now. Anytime there's a change, that happens even in my job, I am able to really have that strong muscle to be very adaptable, in a way in which, I would say, for the years of experience that I've had in the industry, would not just be attributed to my years of experience, is because I have gone through many phases of change. And so my first advice would be, not to be afraid of the unfamiliar. And sometimes it is time to step into something new. And while the picture may not be fully clear, leaving the familiar literally and moving into something else, that could be one of the most rewarding things of your life. And I would also advise her to be patient with herself, to trust the process as we've talked about today. And I would also advise her to know that just as myself and Dr. Slava has spoken, there are people out there in one way or the other that you may cross paths with. It could be maybe another dentist along the way, and sometimes it's just through an encounter. Somebody you will cross paths with, and I just strongly believe this, and really hold on to those words of encouragement. And it just takes one person. And so when you make those decisions, it's so important to have that. We both had some encouragement in our life. And so lean into that, even if it's for a season. And we are both a testament to the fact that once you set a goal, have the belief that you can do it. And my life today as an immigrant from Zimbabwe who is living, now in the United States, who's a dental professional, who has stepped out and, now empowers others as well as a trainer, as a speaker, and as a writer as well, is a testament to the fact that all things are possible. And so that would be my last point of advice, is believe in yourself and know that all things are possible, and higher and greater things are in store for you.
Beautifully put. Thank you so much. We have reached the end of our hour. So as a reminder, these episodes are uploaded weekly on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube by the Mindset Mastery Moment. So if you have enjoyed this, please like, share, and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any episode, and it is for free. This platform sponsored by humanity and supported by everyday people's story, just like the story we heard from Dr. Tsitsi Hungwe. And thank you for listening and for watching, and I hope to see you next time. This is Slava the Jordanian.